Morning, everyone, and thank you for joining our first session for today's Yes Speaker Series. We have a full packed day for you. Today, we're joined by multidisciplinary creative Sean Brown, who's graciously joined us for an open discussion on his work. Before we get started, we would like to acknowledge that the land on which George Brown College is situated is the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the New Credit First Nation and other Indigenous people who have lived on this land. Today, the meeting place of Toronto is still the home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we're grateful to have the opportunity to work in the community and on this territory. Across the School of Design, we remain committed to identifying and removing systemic barriers to accessing college programs and services, and are committed to identifying strategies, tools, and actions to better support our Indigenous student population. In a commitment to build connections and opportunities for students to engage with design's visionaries, YES features a week-long lecture series, 18 to be exact. We're almost at the halfway point today. The design-focused speaker series has been cultivated in an effort to provide dynamic perspectives and unique discussion opportunities for members of our community, including students and faculty alike. Honest advice for designers from really good designers connects the design community with those who have impacted the industry on a local and global scale. We encourage you to ask any questions you have for Sean in the YouTube chat. With that, I'm happy to introduce Sean Brown, who's a Toronto-based creative director, currently working for Combs Enterprises and Sean Diddy Combs, as well as Canadian singer-songwriter Daniel Caesar. He's also the owner and creative director of interior design company Curves by Sean Brown. His path has seen him grow through many creative outlets. From clothing designer to photographer to brand developer, Sean's biggest inspiration continues to be the ever-expanding world around him. I'm going to quote Sean here for a second. It took me a while to get to the point of being totally aware of what existed around me. It's interesting to me how the phrase stay woke has taken on this new meaning of political awareness and correctness. But to go in depth from a personal standpoint, I'm woke when I'm fully absorbing my surroundings, when all of my senses are active and I see something special in the things people tend to walk by or ignore. I mean, people, places, and things. Even before technology evened the playing field creatively and socially, it was still perspective that separated people with imagination. The more I started traveling, the more I started to realize how inspirational and information are available to download around you at all times. Ultimately, through these experiences, I've explored the process of creativity, challenging the notion of art and ideas that have inspired my outlook, approach, and practice. Moderating the Q&A portion of today's session is graphic design graduate Andrina Fairman. Andrina is a multidisciplinary design graduate from the graphic design program with a focus on branding, UX, UI, and creative strategy. Her thesis project is focused on creating inclusive realities for women. Through this thesis, she explored the lack of intersectionality in the feminist movement and how women with disabilities are often excluded from important discussions surrounding their reproductive rights and liberties. Through her research, she learned that these women face infantilization, which causes society to diminish their adult experiences. To tackle this issue, she created a mobile app where women with disabilities can have access to sex education that is relatable to them and to help inform non-disabled women of the struggles that these women face in society and the feminist movement. Outside of school, she worked on various community projects such as the Soul Food Project and the Black Public Health Collective. Thank you, Andrina, for joining us. With that, I'm pleased to turn over to Andrina, who will kick off the session.
Yes, thank you so much, Anna Rita. I'm so happy to be here and have this discussion with you, Sean. You know, it's a beautiful morning, and I'm so happy to just learn more about you, your work, and how creativity, or what creativity means to you. So first off, no problem. Pardon me?
I said, thank you for having me.
No problem. So first off, I just wanted to ask, how did you get on this path of becoming a creative director?
Repetition, persistence, just doing the same thing over and over and not having like a complete expectation of the result, but just trying to see the task through. So whatever I was doing at the time when I started, I just wanted to do good enough work and just get that thing done. And, you know, I'm really big on believing that if you do, like the reward for good work is more work. So I just feel like if you just finish one thing, finish one task, eventually that leads to the next thing. You're constantly growing, evolving, and then you kind of just end up finding your way. But I didn't really set out because I don't think I understood the term. I actually only understand the term creative director as of last year.
Wow.
Yeah, but because now I find that, you know, especially with this new gig, especially in Diddy's world, like I'm not really touching anything like I would before. It's really about
Right.
orchestrating and being like, yo, this has to look like this. It's got to be this text. I was so used to being the hands-on creative, but I'm glad that like this phase or this aspect of my career has to do with actually directing, because I was so focused and so used to the creative part, but I never understood the director part. So I feel like I really just understand creative director in recent times, in recent years.
Oh, wow. So then what does creative direction mean to you? And since, as you're saying that you kind of just recently discovered what it really means, like how could you describe it, I guess, in your lens from your experience and maybe the gig that you're doing right now?
It's like it's juggling details and it's orchestrating. Like it's making sure that, you know, the bass sounds right, that the percussion is good, that the saxophones are in key. Like it has everything to do with the holistic picture of creative. Because
Mhm.
I was so used to like my ideas and, you know, how I saw things in my head, but now things have become so collaborative that it requires so many moving parts. It's so intricate just to make sure that everything is aligned, and it's tough too, because it's trying to get everything in sync and in key. And that's like I think the toughest part of it, like really the direction part. This should go here, this should look like this, we could try it this way, who do we need to call if we have this idea we need to complete, or if we're trying to make this possible or actualize this, like how can we do it? it's
Mhm.
it's it's more of that. It's like the thinking piece, the collaboration, the yeah.
No, I love that. And I also I really understand how, like, through your work exploring creativity is something that's a major thing. I mean, I know as designers we are challenged to, test our limits and, go outside of the box from time to time. And I think with creative direction, I mean, from my understanding, it's like you really have to, be strategic with what you do, but also you could still, you know, find different creative ways to maybe take a look on a certain project for or a certain design aspect. So
Right.
I really like that. And then also within, I know for myself, within creative direction and art direction, I feel like with a lot of people, like, understanding the difference between the two. I mean, I know for myself recently I kind of only really learned what art direction is, what creative direction is, but I think it's still, I guess there is no fine line, if that makes sense.
What
Um,
is the difference to you between art direction?
I would say, with a creative director. Oh, Sean, are you still here?
I think we lost Sean for a second. We'll just give him a minute to come
Okay.
back. He's got this really incredible view. I know a couple people have been commenting on it. Sean is traveling and he's a little bit away, so he was a little bit worried about the remote stream. I'm sure he'll just connect in a minute. Really engaging sort of perspective already, thinking through this sort of Sean's process, looking at what it means to be a creative director, what it means to be an art director, what it means to sort of grow and evolve into that practice. And I think that that's something that probably a lot of young creatives are thinking about. I know that we often get students that say, I want to be a creative director, I want to be an art director. And I think that oftentimes those things mean different things for each of us. I don't know if that's true as well for you, Andrina.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would say basically what Sean was saying about being a creative director, like seeing the work from others, it really kind of gives me the perspective of it's, really finding ways to strategize design in a way. And then I guess for art direction, how I've been taught and also kind of how I've seen it within the design industry, it's almost like it's, honestly, I don't really I don't really know. Like, I think maybe that's maybe not an issue, but I think that's something that should be talked about, because I mean, with creative direction, you can kind of understand that, okay, you have maybe not free roam to do, XYZ, but then with art direction, like, what is that really? Like, what does that job entail?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that, again, like that's sort of like how we characterize that, how we define ourselves as creatives, how we see ourselves. It totally differs and it varies from studio to studio, person to person. So, hearing from someone who's kind of in the thick of it, who knows that space really well, I think is really valuable. I'm looking, there's quite a bit of engagement from the audience already. A lot of people talking about this sort of mix up between art directors and creative directors, and sort of like how these two blur into each other as well. Yeah, lots of folks that are joining us from across the globe. Let us know in the chat where you're joining from. I see we have someone from Norwich. Oh, I think we've got Sean back here. Hey, Sean.
That's crazy. So my phone overheated. It's that hot.
Uh-oh.
And shut off.
Oh no.
Yeah.
You're good now, though?
Sorry. Yeah,
No problem,
I'm good.
no problem. Yeah. So as you were gone, me and Anna Rita were just talking about, what is the difference between art direction? And honestly, to answer your question, I don't really know. I mean, hearing your description of creative direction, it does kind of give, more perspective from someone who's actually, doing that job. But I mean, within my experience within the design industry, I don't think I really understand the difference. And a lot of people, as Anna Rita was saying in the audience, are saying that they kind of merge with each other, or they mesh together in a way. But I think with young designers, it's important to know that you don't have to necessarily label yourself, and I think that's something that is very important within design and just creativity in general, because I think it kind of becomes a bit restricting in my opinion.
Yeah, and the other thing is too, like, I'm just saying that also from my perspective, because I'm really big on like not being so matter of fact. Like, this is just how I see it. This is in my day-to-day experience, but I feel like, you could ask anyone, they might have like a completely different experience from mine. And I think one of the first things is not to be so matter of fact. Like, this is who I am now, but I might feel differently about creative direction tomorrow. I might have a completely different spiel next week if you ask me. This is just what I think about it right now.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense. So to move on to my next question. So what were some of the key inspirations at the beginning of your career?
Tangible media, no internet. And I'm not going to be that guy, because I actually do love the internet and all the apps and technology, except for when it overheats my phone in a live broadcast. But tangible media, like, music videos. I'm the Y2K era generation, so like music videos, magazines, before like the internet really hit and we had access to all this information. I think like tangible media was the first form of inspiration for me.
And then would you say that your inspirations or influences changed as you grew as a designer or as a creative?
Yes, because then, you add like life experiences, the people you meet, the music that's coming out, right. The way the world's changing, societal changes, all those things then affect, your personality and how you see art and your artistic output. But yeah, initially, I think I was looking at things that were a part of my culture, like rap and hip hop culture. And then I was straying away from it as I was getting older, thinking that I was supposed to be chasing worlds that weren't mine, like, ideas and art that wasn't just mine. And I was always experimenting with what wasn't, like, but I just mean, I think only now I'm coming back to the roots of like where my inspiration started. That's why you're seeing like the CD rugs and the use of like old tech and like, but my thing is like, how can I, modernize it and repurpose it? Because I'm not out here trying to sell people actual CDs. Yeah. But if we can repurpose it into something that, because now I'm actually into interior design and home design. So like, how can we take inspiration and art and repurpose it? That's what I'm big on now. That's how I think you transfer inspiration into actualizing ideas.
Wow, I love that. I know the CD rugs are amazing. Definitely something that is, very popular on social media. And I think I really admire how you basically bring that essence of hip hop and rap culture into your work. And I think it also kind of, I think it also, opens a discussion of, what the type of things that people can take inspiration from. I know for myself, like culture is definitely a really big thing that I am inspired by as well. So I really admire that and the work that you do in terms of, the taking inspiration from what was in the past and kind of changing it up and modernizing it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's I was having a conversation about this the other day. I think the reason why nostalgia is so big right now is it's kind of poking holes in how much the world's ready for innovation. You know what I mean? Because we're looking so much to the past, and like, you remember when things were like this, and you remember when music was like this, and when like everyone's so trying to touch, things about the past and about what they remember, things that excited them and inspired them. And I think that's pointing to the fact that it's time for more innovation. Like, it's time for change. It's time to see like what the future can actually look like. And not to say that we're not doing that, but just, I think nostalgia or the constant want for nostalgia is pointing toward the need for innovation.
Mm-hmm. I agree completely. So we have a couple of audience questions. So this is a question from Jasmine. So
you know how wild it is to sorry. You know how wild it is to be in the future and there's an audience and I can't even see them. Like there's audience questions. There's like, that's wild to me.
Oh, wow. So Jasmine says, thanks for joining us for Yes. Sean, you work on many projects across different disciplines. It may seem like comparing apples to oranges, but do you have a favorite project you've worked on?
I would say the project, I think where I'm at now. So like the urban development project I'm trying to do with Hypatia, because I think that up until this point, and I've been saying this a lot recently, but I think up until this point, my art has been really self-serving. It's been about, my inspiration and my ideas and how, like, the things that I'm seeing in my visions. But I don't, like, at the end of the day, if I'm being completely honest, like, it's still very much about me. You know what I'm saying? And I think that now I need to utilize art and design and creativity to see how we can change the future, like for real. Like, so in looking for property and in getting into this home stuff, I feel like there was never really spaces. I'll start with Toronto because it's where I'm from, but there was never really spaces that were designed with intent. Everything kind of just looks the same. And I just really believe that can change. I really believe that development and how spaces look in Toronto can be more intentful. They can be approached with more of an intent for the end user and the person who's actually going to dwell in the space. And in the end, like, we're all going to make the best work and at least aim to live our best lives if our spaces are where they need to be and elevated. And I think that at the very minimum, it just starts with intent. Like, not just putting up these condos with just concrete and glass and with no care, and just it just being about selling square feet. Like, I want to infiltrate changing that. So I think my most exciting project is working on that now. It's the home stuff.
I love that.
In space, yeah. And rent.
There you go too. I love that because I did take a look at the work that you've been doing on that so far, and I think I could probably say this for a lot of other people, especially since the pandemic started, like working from home, doing school from home, and just staying at home and not being able to really go anywhere. Like, having a space that's comfortable and that is also inspiring as designers is so important, because I know for myself, going to school and going out with friends, you're inspired by the city and, the people around you. But when you don't have access to that, it's like, what is there for you to have? And yes, there's the internet, but, having a comfortable space that actually can motivate you, inspire you, and it's exactly comfortable. Like,
it changes everything.
Yeah.
It changes everything. And, yeah, that's the exciting part for me. And I hope that makes sense when I'm saying, like, the art that's happening right now it's fun. I really like doing it, but if it's not going to be about long-term effective change and how we can help other people. So at the beginning of this, in the intro, like, there was mention of, people living with disabilities. Like, I don't think there's enough of a focus on design for people living with disabilities in urban cities. And it's just like, why? Like there are people, we can ask people about this. We can ask them how they feel about this. Like, what is it they need to actually wake up and live easier, and then just make design like a part of that. I don't think it can't be done. That's the kind of thing that I want to be challenged with now. That's the new phase of where I'm at.
Oh, I really love that. So another question is, social media is a growing tool for designers and creatives to get their work out there and to also find inspiration from other people. What do you like? How do you decide what to post and what not to post?
Well, the thing that I don't post is inspiration, because inspiration is so sacred to me and it's so personal that
Uh-oh.
I think Sean probably got another overheating.
Yeah.
I'm just going to pull up some of the comments that people have been making. There's lots of really good discussion points. We got people joining from all over the place, everywhere from Brampton to College Park to DC, Minnesota. We've got someone from Norwich, someone from Ottawa. Couple of comments just generally. One from Paul Hassop: designers can do anything. Spend time in the trenches first before you creatively direct. I think that's really great advice. Jorney Harris states that, from my understanding, the skills required of an art director and creative director are different. I think absolutely. And again, sort of blends into this idea of what Sean was talking about, where you kind of, you have to figure out your knack before moving forward there. We've got Cree joining us from Bermuda. Hi, Cree. Lots of folks just sort of agreeing with Sean, noting that a lot of this work comes down to collaboration and how we can engage. Rosa Cantiller, former graduate of the School of Design, notes that inspiration to repurpose and remix, very, very important there. Lots of people talking about can't wait for the 8-track plugs. So, huge opportunity there for Curves by Sean Brown. Yeah, lots of people talking again about this idea of nostalgia and what that means for us. I know we have lots of questions for Sean, and we will definitely get back to them when he rejoins the field. Yeah, lots of folks talking about urban planning, this idea of hypatia space making that Sean was talking about, and it's definitely a changer for the city. I really appreciated Sean's mention of this sort of juxtaposition between the designer's role and the role of, for example, urban planners, when we think about how to sort of make space for those who are differently abled within the city, and how design can be a tool for empowering that space. So I think that's really an important discussion. And again, a discussion that maybe you wouldn't think that a creative director would be having, but one what's super, super important. So you can see where some of Sean's sort of interests definitely lie. Sean has moved. He's now amongst the trees. He's got nature here.
You see how hot it is.
Oh gosh.
Like, I wanted to be known how hot it is. Like,
I think for everyone that's in Toronto, you're giving us all a lot of FOMO. It's definitely not hot here today. It's like 8 degrees and super muggy, but I'll let you folks get back to your discussion. We were just going over some of the comments that folks had mentioned, and there's lots of audience questions, but I'll let Adrina get back to it.
Yeah. So just to touch back on designing with intent, like what you were saying about these spaces that you're creating, I think that's amazing. And I also really wanted to ask more about how you, I guess, find the intersect, or how you intersect the different design mediums that you focus on. So I know that you do photography, you do design, fashion, interior design, and then architecture in different ways. So I guess, how do you find or create that intersection between these different mediums?
I fell into, or like, these things kind of just happen out of necessity. So like with the photography stuff, I really got into it because of having to take photos for Danny's album, Daniel Caesar's first album. And when he's an indie artist, and so when we were working on his first album, he needed, the graphic design, he needed photography, he needed a director. So we kind of just, me and Kayvon Yaz Danny, like, we kind of just took those roles on, you know what I mean? And developed, just kept doing that for him. And that led to me being on tour with him and traveling around the world, I stepped back from fashion. I was doing fashion at the time. I stepped away from fashion, and just started, like, you know, picking up more cameras and looking at different films. And when it came time to do his videos, like, we just started writing treatments. It kind of just, like I was saying, you know, you do one thing and then that leads you into the other thing, and you know, you kind of end up just evolving creatively in that way. I wasn't setting out to be a director. I always loved Hype Williams and Spike Jones, but I was never trying to actively pursue directing. Those things kind of just happened out of the necessity, like the circumstance of where we were at.
Wow. And like along with working with Daniel Caesar, you've also worked with some other Toronto artists, like Amal New, Jay Wiss, etc. And then obviously you're working with Sean Combs. Like, so I know you mentioned that you started like your photography with Daniel Caesar, but then I'm assuming it kind of like from that it evolved into working with other artists and, like, you know, working on their, I guess, albums or single covers, and kind of capturing the essence of their music through film and photography. So I guess how was it working with these people? What was that experience like?
It was good because they're all so different in their own way. They're artists as well, so they all come with their own way of their own perspective and how they see the world. And a lot of the times in working with them, it was like, here's my music, here's how I see things, but I need help in getting it from out of my mind out into the world. And that's always been like a part of the collaborative process. Is, here's my art, like, how do you see me transferring it? Like, how do I translate this so it makes sense to an audience of people? So that's always been fun. I really enjoy like creative direction in music and album artwork and packaging and presentation. I think I'll be doing that forever. Like, I really enjoy that part.
And you do it well. I mean, I know that for myself, Daniel Caesar, his Freudian album, amazing, and the visuals that came with that, very props to you, because I feel like it really captured the essence of the music, and it really, you know, set a staple for at least Toronto artists who, you know, are really, I guess, like indie artists and stuff like that. And I know that along with other people, like, get like the visuals are something that's very, if I in a way it really yeah, just, I don't know, it just captures the essence of the music. And I think that pairing that with the music of Daniel Caesar's beautiful voice and whatever, it's just amazing.
Right.
So I'm going to take an audience question. So Zoran says, Sean, you commented on people wanting to touch the past. What is your relationship with creating a sense of tangibility throughout your work?
I'm sorry, there's like a jet. Can you guys hear the jet?
Yeah, it's not that loud though. You're fine.
Okay, good. I would say, because I believe history repeats, I think that it is important to create things that are offline, because you just don't know about the internet. Like, you just don't know what can happen. You just don't know. I just believe in like the world constantly like evolving and moving things. If I just look at how history repeats itself, I honestly think that things like Instagram are almost weirdly like at the tail end of the intent of what the thing was. Like, you sign into Instagram now and it's really just like stores and explorer pages, but that wasn't the intent of it like when we started. And because of that, and because everyone's been inside for like the past year, I think now things are going to go back to magazines and blogs and books and people wanting to be outside with their friends and face-to-face contact, live shows, like all the things we took for granted. That's what I mean. And we couldn't have seen that coming without a pandemic, but I just think that's what happens in history, is like there's no way to know that you're going to need something to happen globally that will allow people to really appreciate the human experience, like close contact or holding something like a book, or being able to just go outside to the park and read, like, you know what I mean? So I believe in creating things that are tangible, that'll just like last when things like, when the apps don't, when technology doesn't. You see, my phone has been overheating twice. This wouldn't have been happening if we were in an auditorium, like, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, that's why I think the tangible aspect is so important. And plus, those are all the things that have inspired me so greatly. Like, I still love Tumblr, but there's nothing like holding a book or a magazine from 10, 5, 30 years ago and just going through it, you know, seeing where the world was at and how you can
Right.
look at that and kind of try and shape where things are going. So tangible part's important, really, really important. But the digital is just as important, but the tangible part, like, it's important.
Right. And I think that's really important, like you said, because, you know, I mean, within design, we always refer to like past designers and what they did and how that kind of changed how things are now. And it's like, you know, there's no harm in going back a couple decades and seeing, you know, what was done then, and maybe not even just taking inspiration, but just you know, analyzing, okay, what was happening at that time that caused them to do XYZ. And then, you
Right.
know, with now being everything's being so digital, and like you said, you know, everyone's on social media for the past year, everything is online. It's like there's people are probably burnt out, and I think, you know, maybe to get, you know, a different sense of inspiration and just refresh your creativity, you know, having tangible inspiration is something that could probably help a lot of people.
Right.
So
For
let's take
sure.
another. Yeah, let's take another audience question. So Ethan says, Sean, do you ever struggle with creative block? If so, what is a method you use to make your way out of it?
I don't know if I would say struggling with creative block. I would say, or okay, here's the thing. These are the blocks that I struggle with creatively. I struggle with I struggle with creative constraint. So in working, if you got to do a project and you might run into constraint where you just can't, you're really not allowed to be creative. That's a creative block for me.
Mhm.
I don't suffer from the authorship, like the writer's block part of it, but I suffer from like, or not suffer from, but I find it challenging when I can't be creative, and therefore I just don't want to do the thing because that
Yeah,
just is not me being creative. You know what I
right.
mean? I don't want to I don't want to do things for a check. I don't want to do things for money. I don't want to do things for attention. I want to do things with intent and make really good work. But I just don't want to be doing things if I can't be creative. And it's initially about creativity. Does that
Mhm.
make sense? Not from a writer's block perspective, but more so from a like the constraint of, yo, you can't do this because that things have never been done that way, or like
Yeah,
nah.
that
And
makes
of
a
course,
lot of sense.
got to be compromised. But
Yeah.
I just initial, like, you know, if I can't be creative, I find that very challenging.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's like something that a lot of creative people, you know, probably face within their childhood, growing up, getting into the industry. Whereas like there's kind of like a certain set of rules of like what good design is or what creativity has to look like. And, you know, it's not really that. Everyone's mind is different. And, you know, people should be allowed to explore that. Obviously, yes, you know, there may be certain things you can't do or whatever, but at the same time, like having that ability to express yourself creatively in any way is something I think that if they can't do that, like that is going to obviously create some sort of block, like what you said. So I agree. I agree 100%. So yeah, I'll move on to my next question. So your very popular project in no particular order that is actually being given away during this Yes series. Basically, what was the biggest takeaway from that project that you did?
Um, I think how important documentation is, how important it is to keep some kind of track or some kind of, because for me, I don't find that I'm very good with writing, like with the writing portion of like journal or diary, but that is my form, a visual diary of like, yo, all the places I've seen in the world that I can like look back on, and um people who are not seeing the world yet, like an inspiration to, because what inspired me to get out and travel so much some years ago was this blog called Blue Pool Road, I think. And I forgot the photographer's name. I forgot her name. If someone finds it, you can throw it in the chat. But I forgot her name. She was this incredible photographer, just running around shooting the world food, and it allowed me to be like, yo, there's shit out there. Like I need to go outside. Like
Yeah.
so, Now that's just me documenting like the world I see every day. I mean, I'm talking to you from Lake Powell.
Wow.
Like, so and I'll end up probably putting that in a book, just because that's just what I'm seeing like right now. I just believe in, like, you're seeing the world, you should document it. You don't know who it'll inspire. You don't know how you'll feel about it. I'll be able to look back and be like, yo, I remember what that felt like. I remember going there. And if I was all just storing that all on a cloud or a drive, I don't think it would be the same. Having it all in a collection, a volume of books, going back to that tangible part, I just thought that was an important thing to do.
Wow, I love that. I love that a lot. And I think like the way you capture the way you capture these images, it's just, I think it like you said, as that's your form of like jotting things down. And I think for a lot of people, maybe journaling is not their thing, maybe taking notes is not their thing. And I think that's a really great way for visual exploration, but also just a way to create memories for yourself. So
Yeah.
we'll take another audience question. So Yaz says, hello from Toronto, and thanks for doing this talk today. How do you push yourself to break out of what you're comfortable with? What do you look to outside of tech when you want to try something new?
Damn, Yaz. That's a good I would say, like, does it feel right? Like, is it uncomfortable creatively, but does it feel like the challenge is worth it, or like it's necessary? And do I have some form of audacity to do the thing? So, like urban development, I do not come from a real estate background. I'm not an architect, but I know that going back to that creative director thing, if I can get an architect in a room with an urban planner, who I can get in a room with another architectural designer, and we can collab on interior design, and we can talk to some people, real actual people, and ask them how they feel about things. So if it feels uncomfortable enough that, like, yo, should I be doing this? Like, is this my world? Like, do I need to? But no, I probably should. I should take on the challenge. I should do it because it feels different. It feels uncomfortable at first, but then it feels, this is what I should be doing. I should at least, you know what I mean? And if it doesn't go the way it should, it's just gonna allow me to evolve into something else. But I should at least try.
Right.
I'm not sure that's the question, but that's what I think is.
I love that. Let's take another audience question. So how do you maintain your sacred space of originality and truth when you intake I'm assuming they mean so much, when you intake so much creative expression from the outside world via social media, events, etc.?
It's like, first, a daughter named Fire. I don't know. Someone needs to. That's an incredible name. I don't know. Someone wants something for a band, for something. That's just an incredible name. I don't know what anyone intends to do with that, but a daughter named Fire is a really fire name. Anyway, and to answer that question, knowing the like the difference between referencing and copying, like knowing to see something, and knowing where the reference stops. Like, if you see an image, like, how can you take something and, again, repurpose it or translate it into something else? Like, I think it's about knowing when to see something, and how far the inspiration, how far a reference goes. Like, how far does something inspire you before it becomes copying, before it becomes you doing the exact same thing? Like I said, so if I'm looking at, like, the CD rugs, those things existed in other forms of media. They were compact discs. Can you take the idea of media, of a CD design, of an object, and repurpose it into a rug, into a couch, into a throw, and that's like on the more surface of that example. But in terms of, like, when you see designers take something like a lizard or a bird that they saw in the wild, and they make a bag out of it or a pattern out of it, like,
Yeah.
I just think it's about knowing how much reference and how much inspiration to take, to turn something into a new thing.
Right.
Yeah. And social media, honestly, I don't know if we're supposed to have access to that much information. I don't know if people are supposed to have that much access. Like, if you think about it, I think if you were on the Explorer page, you could be on it for 24 hours a day, and I don't think it would end. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
That's
I
kind of
agree.
so. It like maybe not looking at those things so much as a guide. But no, that's not true, because there's so many things on social media that inspire you. Just got to know like what to take. It's kind of like anything, like, having knowing enough of, like, a diet almost. How much you take, how much you don't, how much is too much of something you're seeing, too much that is in your space, too much in your psyche, that, like, yo, it might block you from creating something else. It might deter you from creating. It might discourage you. It might give you a creative block. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah,
I guess like finding a balance between
balance. That's the word.
digital. Yeah.
Really balance. Like, you got to curate your intake. Like, you that you got to protect that for sure.
I agree. And I know for myself, living in Toronto, going outside, going in the city, looking at other people and things around me, it's like, taking in all of that like non-digital inspiration and creativity and just people and life like that. I think that's really important, because like you said, being online all the time, it's not the healthiest also. And it's like I feel like there's such great inspiration that you can get even from looking out your window. So
Right.
finding that balance of, okay, what can I get, what can I be inspired by online versus what can I be inspired by going for a walk outside. Like, there's a lot. You honest, and I know for a lot of people, like, inspiration, it comes from a lot of things. Like, I know for you, for me, for probably almost everyone. So yeah, I guess basically what I'm saying is finding a balance is definitely something that's super important when it comes to creativity and inspiration.
Exactly. And also too, it's not having enough of the technology, I wouldn't say is the best thing either, because you want to be a person like you. The thing is, start out with it, but they just spiral out because there's no balance. So, but it's like, I don't want to go back to not using Google Maps, because think about it, like, our parents were find a destination. You know what I'm saying? So it's still so important, but it's just about balance. Like you said, it's really just.
We'll do one more audience question. So Journey says, how do you build or how do you meet your team of people who support your vision and will challenge you to become a better designer?
I think it was Issa Rae that said you should network horizontally, because everyone's always trying to network vertically. Everyone's always trying to, like, find who's already there or who's already done the thing and trying to connect with them. But, like, literally, you probably have like 3 or 5 people right beside you who are in the same place, and all you guys got to do is, like, band together and learn together. For me, the thing that's worked is, again, I was always focused on the creative, but once I started meeting people, or building friendships with people who understood how to take art and partner it and intersect it with commerce, that's when things started to change. Because that's the thing I find, like, is challenging for a lot of creatives, is like, they have the creative part so down. They're gifted naturally, or they've adapted this skill, but it's like there's that part of, like, organizing the thing, the business side of it, and, like, the presentation side of it, how to actually make your art work for you in a sense. But I believe you got to network horizontally. You got to find people who are going to grow with you and who balance out, like, the black skill set. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think that that quote will resonate with a lot of people, especially new, like a lot of the graduates from this year, last year, or next year, if anything, because that's something that is probably on about a lot of our minds, like, with, especially during a pandemic, trying to find a job, and maybe someone doesn't want to, necessarily want to work for another company. They want to, be an entrepreneur and freelance. So, I guess creating those connections with people who are on the same level. Oh, I'm back.
Hi.
Oh gosh, technical issues. It's okay. I had a connection issue on my end too. Yes. So sorry, I kind of forgot what I was saying. I think I was talking about creating connections with people who, maybe have the same goals as you, and then I guess elevating yourself and as a group, as a collective, and collaborating with other people. I think that's a really important thing that people can, really take away from this talk, and, look into on their own, and definitely something that I will be taking interest in as well.
And like if you can, like 3 to 5 people, everyone's got the same goals, the same dreams. I don't know the formula for it, make it happen. Mine.
I love that. So to go back a bit about curves and interior design. So you mentioned about how like your motivation in terms of like design and fashion and, nostalgia and going back in the past. With curves, do you think that maybe your creativity or your process of exploration has changed since you launched curves?
Yes, definitely, because it's not just about fashion. It's not just about the things I'm holding in my hand, about the space I'm dwelling in now.
Mm-hmm.
It's around me that affects my mood. It's about, where the sunlight coming in, if I can see the sunset, like the ambience, like the space that I occupy in order to create now is such an important thing. And when I was younger, it's not really something I was thinking about, you know. Um, so Curves has allowed me to now build around yeah, and people who care about space and their space, and yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I think like even I'm hoping some people took a look at your work, and also with the little presentation that Anna Rita did in the beginning, with the CD rugs, you mentioned that. But I also think like finding that intersection, or I think you could see the intersection of the different mediums that you do with like fashion, art, music, and I think you could really see that in Curves with obviously the CD rugs, and there's also, rugs that are just very artistic and I guess are inspired off of fine art, and then fashion in terms of or maybe not fashion, but what would you say, like material items? I don't know, like you have like bags and blankets, just different items that I guess are inspired by the different
everyday
yeah
yeah
Yeah, I think that's really inspiring. With Curves, you should be very proud, because I think it's a very transformative thing that, with interior design. I mean, I know for myself, I don't really know the world of interior design, but I think it really opens something for people to see that you don't necessarily have to only, like, your design doesn't only have to be print or be digital. Like, you could kind of merge into something else. And I guess as being a multi-dimensional designer, that's like something that, that's kind of what it has led to, I'm guessing.
Right. Yeah, for sure. and it's really just about being curious about the thing, because you've got it looks like some kind of pattern or throw you got hung up in the background. So you clearly you've thought about it. You
Yeah.
like it. You know what I mean? Yeah, and that's really all it's about. Like people just thinking about the space that they're dwelling in, that they're inhabiting, and how it pushes it enhances the thought process and the creative process.
Right. Um, And then, so what another question I have is related on the pandemic, and I know that traveling is a really big inspiration for you, and going to different countries, seeing people and cultures. Now, with the pandemic, obviously, it's not as well. It's still bad, but I guess during the beginning of the pandemic, did you find that that the pandemic impacted your method of work and your creativity because you couldn't really travel as much as you wanted to?
Yeah, and Curves, like in 2018, Curves was a gallery, and Curves actually referred to one of the steps that I was using when I first started editing film photography. One of my first steps in photo curves to use contrast. So curves derives from that, and then it also derives from the creative process of the learning curves.
Mm-hmm.
Curves was initially an art gallery. Like we had done 3 exhibitions before the pandemic, and then because I was, my plans were to go to Coachella. Danny was headlining. We went and shot all this shit in Spain. We had the whole shit, and then the pandemic happened. We were inside, and
Yeah.
a new apartment, and I was just looking around, being like, "Yo, I'm gonna be here. I got to start thinking about, what pencils I like, what couches I like." It just started. That allowed the art gallery to morph into this home design, home goods, interior design thing naturally. You
Right.
know, I wasn't planning on getting into interior design or urban development. My plans, I was I was planning to be at Coachella, so it evolved it in that way.
Wow. And then I guess with that, I mean, although it maybe the pandemic halted your plans, it really kind of birthed this another beautiful thing, which is very inspirational. But to maybe before the pandemic, were there any other obstacles or challenges that you faced throughout your career?
I guess. I would say feeling like you weren't really. Oh, how you doing, brother? Good. Not really feeling like you were a part of these industries and these worlds, because it almost,
Mm,
in the old way of doing things was you had to have a formal education, you had to have um, how many years of expertise to be able to play, and I think the thing kind of put like also a bit of red tape around creativity, because it meant that someone had to either walk you into the world, or
yeah.
that gatekeepers were being like, yeah, we like you, come play, kind of thing. Now, if, like I'm saying, if a few folks just band together with some innovative ideas fresh out of George Brown, they could change the whole thing. There's
Right.
nobody being like, you can't get into urban development because you don't have it. No, we're gonna do it. We're gonna find whichever architects, we're gonna find a way to do the thing. Before, it just felt like there was so many rules, so many
Yeah.
like processes, and so many like traditional ways of doing things. And we have the opportunities with things like technology, with things um like social media connecting us all. We can just make things happen a lot quicker. They can be a lot more impactful. We don't have to go the process, go from making a better world stage because of the resources. Like, you don't need to sign a record deal necessarily, but like in there's so many ways in which things have just changed. So those were challenges for me before, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And I know for myself. Oh, sorry. What were you saying?
No, go ahead. Just that. Just the traditional ways of doing things were challenging for me because I always felt like rules could be broken, things could be simple, um, and we're getting like things are becoming more and more that way. Like,
Right.
yeah.
And I know for myself, like even before graduating, struggling with what good design is and what I guess the industry kind of tells you to do. It's something that I know that me for myself and probably a lot of other designers and creative people like struggle with, and I guess finding that way to kind of step out of that box, especially after graduation, is probably something that I know that a lot of people are gonna maybe struggle with. But I feel like once you kind of find that route, it should be going good from there. So I have time for one more. Oh yeah.
Just this one last point I want to say is like everything is so intricate that like you really can't take anyone's word for it.
Yeah.
Especially if you're young and you're just about to get out there into the world. Not even my advice.
Mm-hmm.
One's word for it, because like everyone's journey, everyone's way of doing the thing is going to be so intricate and so personal to them that like, my advice would be not me and anybody who sounds so sure of themselves, because
Right.
no one can tell you about you and your journey and your way of doing things, and like yeah.
I agree. So we just have a couple more minutes left, and I just really wanted to ask this last question just to end off this amazing talk with you. What advice can you give other multidisciplinary creatives who basically want to aspire to, I guess, become a creative director, but just aspire to things that are not so conform to what the industry tells you to do, if that makes sense?
Honestly, just have intent behind the work you're making, and just do the thing. Don't let anyone tell you that you are something or that you're not something. Just do the thing. Love what you do. Keep doing it. Do it enough times to get really good at it, and stay curious. Just don't think that you're ever good enough where you don't have to learn anything anymore.
Right.
When your work is good, like there's still so many things to learn and to get better at. That the minute you start feeling like you've done the thing or you've done it before, and there's nothing to get better at, there's nothing to tweak and fix or enhance, that's when I think it becomes like, like losing curiosity kills creativity to me.
Right.
And you stay curious, and we're losing the idea of titles anyway, so just be an ideas person and like actually actualize like your ideas.
Wow, I love that.
And band together, get with some people who do things better than because there's so much value in learning from other people. So, like, get with people who are going to even you out. You bring that, they'll bring a certain skill set because they have the thing that it's not your strength. There's a few lizards like crawling next to me, like, so yeah.
Well, okay. Well, thank you so much. It was amazing talking with you. We're unfortunately out of time, but I appreciate all the information into your work and who you are as a creative. And this was amazing. I'm so happy that I was able to talk to you about all of this.
Thank you. Me too. And thank you everyone who was rocking when technology failed us. My phone was acting crazy. Thank you.